Hi, my friends, and welcome into this week's episode of the Forte Catholic Podcast. I'm so glad that you are here. I'm also glad that Chris Bartlett is here as our co-host today. We talk about conflict and how to best manage conflict, especially in our most important relationships, like our marriages, best friends, family, and our relationship with God. We also talk about the importance of remembrance and remembering when it comes to prayer and also in those relationships. And then we take a little break and play a game that Chris invented where we try to compare or we try to make faith points from all that Halloween candy that our kids got a couple of weeks ago. So we hope that you enjoy today's episode. If you do, make sure you hit subscribe wherever you are watching or listening. Enjoy. And welcome to Forte Catholic. I'm Taylor Schroll, and that is Christopher Bartlett. Hello, Christopher.
Hello, Taylor. How are you, friend?
I am doing very well. We have come a very long way in your history with this show. So you have been a listener of the show since day one, and then you came on the show for the first time. Why don't you tell us how that went?
I embarrassed you. I have a personality, and I left my personality somewhere else because I was nervous because it was Catholic radio. At the time, you had your own Catholic radio show, and I felt like you had to, like it was talking in church. I was just a different person.
You were, and I was like, I don't know who that was. I never want him on the show again. But about a year later, I was like, I would like the real Chris Bartlett. Could he please stand up? Y'all act like you've never seen a white person before. Jaws on the floor. So I invited you back onto the show, and then you were the normal person, and it was actually entertaining and good. And then you were a guest for many times. And then, as my co-hosts have been dropping like flies, because I guess I'm hard to be around after a long period of time, you were kind of a fill-in co-host. And now you're going to be one of those permanent ones. Permanent meaning anywhere from 1 year to 2 years, because that's typically how long people last around here. I don't know what's wrong with Father Anthony in the brain that he sticks around this long.
Yeah.
But yeah, we announced last week that Catherine is no longer with us. She's in a better place, and you are going to be taking over for her. Welcome.
Yes, thank you. Yeah, those are some big shoes to fill. Hopefully, I'll have
smaller feet, I believe, actually.
Thick enough skin to be able to last at least a year. Yeah, there you go. I'm happy to be here, Taylor. I'm excited to journey with you and your amazing listeners.
Yeah, when I asked you this, we won't share the whole conversation because we had a little bit of a off the record conversation as well. But when I was asking you to be on the show, it's just surprising to me that you said what you said, because you said that you've been a listener for a very long time, and then it's weird for you to be on the other side. I'm like, Chris, you've been on the other side like 10 times already.
I think 4. I think this is number 5.
I think there's been multiple, because you've been a guest 2 or 3 times, and then
there was the retreat, the men's retreat one.
Yeah, the men's retreat live. You were like my primary host there. You've been the fill-in co-host a few times. If only there were a website where I could figure this out. I don't know. I didn't do much show prep for today, so.
Well, luckily I am here, so I will look bad as my first time as an official co-host. So,
but I have stories to tell. You have stories to tell, and you actually have done more show prep for this show than any co-host has done in the last 5 years. You actually have a game for us that I'm really excited about.
Yep. Thank you.
Okay, so we'll get to the game eventually, but we do have a couple of topics that I want to bring up. One is a continuation of a conversation that I had last week with Catherine. And as a listener to the show, you listen to every word that I say because you love and adore me. I
hang on every word.
Yeah, absolutely. Most people don't think hanging is a good emotion, but that's a whole nother deal. So
yes.
I mentioned you on last week's show because I got to spend my birthday with you, and it was a very lovely day. You paid me to hang out with you. That's always my favorite kind of friendships.
Yep.
And this is mostly just to thank you for, you've been about half of the speaking or worship leader events that I've booked this year have been because of you. So this is really just a thank you. I don't really want you to be here, but I felt obligated.
Good. I'm glad to have bought my way into your world.
Yeah. Out where they go, out where they run, out where they stay all day in the sun. You are now part of my world. So I wanted to start with this continuation that I mentioned of as we are recording this, it is Thursday afternoon. My stomach is full because I just went to mass and to lunch with my wife, because this was our third week since our parish date night. That's, if you missed the story, that's the story. We went to a date night at our parish. People talked, and they were like, "Hey, you should be better at marriage." And like the takeaway is always like, "You should pray together," and we're like, "I don't really want to." Or, "You should spend more time together," and we're like, "We don't have any time." But then we finally, after going to parish date night multiple times, we finally were like, we're going to do we're going to have a takeaway from this. And our takeaway was, we're going to go to daily mass and lunch once a week, built in every Thursday. That's what we're doing. And I just returned from that, and it was okay.
What made it okay?
So I'm not a good Catholic. That shouldn't come as a surprise to many of the people listening. There's like 3 people who are new and like, "Oh, what?" But he has a Catholic podcast. He's not perfect. No, I'm one of the 2 Catholic podcasters that it doesn't portray themselves as a perfect person. So daily mass is a newer thing for me. I haven't been since I've been forced to go. Like, it has been a very long time that I have chosen to go to daily mass. I've been to daily mass a bunch in the last many years because I was leading worship for mass at a Catholic school 3 times a week. Or, 2 weeks ago when I was with you, I led worship for daily mass on a retreat 2 days before that. But then that same week I was required, or the next week actually, I think I mentioned on the show that I was grumpy because I voluntarily went to daily mass on a Thursday and then unknowingly was required to go to daily mass the next day because it was a holy day of obligation. So I went to that daily mass willingly, and I enjoyed it, and I chose to be there. I went to the holy day of obligation on All Saints' Day grumpy because I was required to be there.
Yep. It's the same with books. You assign me a book, I'm going to hate it. That same book, if I just am like, I'm going to pick it up and read it, I will enjoy that book because I chose that book. But assigned reading, it's hard. Yeah.
You want to know how my brain is broken when it comes to reading books? I can't read books. I have to have them read to me like a child. I do all audiobooks. And I do this thing where I go back and forth between one for me, one for them kind of thing. And the them is typically growing in my faith relationship with the Lord. The ones for me are like Star Wars and Game of Thrones. And the one for them is either a business book to become a better leader in person or a faith book to become better at faith. Well, I got one recommended to me. It wasn't assigned, but it was recommended to me. And it had a theme for the year. And I'm just late on it. It's an Irish book, a book about Ireland, and I went to Ireland early in the year, and somebody who has been impactful in my life has a very thick Irish accent, so I'll listen to, I hang on every word that they say,
Yes.
because of the accent. Well, they recommended this book to me, and it's terrible. It's just a terrible, terrible, terrible book, but my number one on the Strengths Finder test or whatever that your place of work made me take many years ago, my number one thing is achiever. So once I start something, I must complete it. And I am currently into this book and can't stand it. Every word is boring as hell, and I'm treating it like purgatory because I have to finish the book. I have to. It is required by my brain to continue doing this thing that I hate.
What's the speed that you're listening at? Have you gone up to like 5x speed to where it's just like a little leprechaun dancing over the words, or how fast are you listening to it?
That sounds like so much fun. I have not done that because I've not broken my other rules. There's all these fake rules that I follow the fake rules that I set for myself way better than I follow the required laws that God has set forth. Like,
sure.
I don't like the ones. God's laws are good for me. These, I'm just punishing myself. I don't understand why I'm the way that I am. It's still at 1.2 speed because that's where I read. It's a history book. It's essentially a history lesson. Has some connections to faith stuff. Like a big part of it is. It's the book is called How the Irish Saved Civilization. And it's like the premise of it is fascinating to me. The premise of it is fascinating. The premise of it could have been a story told in 30 minutes. It's a 4.5-hour audiobook, and all the rest of it is just crap I don't care about. It's like the boring part of history. But essentially, Ireland being this island all off on its own, all of the famous books, including the Bible and books from like Socrates, Plato, the writings of all these great writers of antiquity, were all burned and destroyed whenever Europe was destroyed by wars. We had the Roman wars and all of that conquest, and then we had, I'm sure you've heard of there's been quite a few wars over in Europa, that sort of place. So many of these books were destroyed. The only reason we have Not the only reason we have the Bible, but a lot of our primary sources for the Bible were from Ireland. A lot of some of the authors like Plato, Socrates, Caesar Augustus, all these guys, the only copies we have were from Ireland because all the rest of them were destroyed. Fascinating premise, has some connections to faith. And yet the whole book is like, here's what we lost. And they just read to me these points from these authors that I could not care any less about. And I am trucking through it at 1.2 speed. What's wrong with me? Never mind. Don't answer that question.
I think you just saved us all 4.5 hours. There it is.
I know.
Yeah. Ireland is like the library of Europe when Europe is burning down.
Right.
Great. Yep.
Yeah. That's the story. And that's what hooked me on it. And the rest of it is like, and also, one of the books that was saved was written by this man, and here's what he did. And I'm like, I don't care. So I cannot read this for fun. Like when I'm reading a Game of Thrones book, like I have it playing essentially anywhere my children aren't. Like if I'm sitting at the desk and not doing work where I need my ears, it's kind of there playing in the background. I listen to it while driving, listening to it while I'm in the sauna, listening to it like literally while I'm working out, whatever, right? This has become an only sauna or red light bed book, because if I'm going to suffer anyway, I might as well 10 times it. It's 150 degrees in here, and I'm listening to how the Irish saved civilization, and it's just a reminder not to go to hell because I'm living it for 30 minutes every 4 days.
Very nice. Well, on behalf of the suffering souls in purgatory, we thank you, Taylor, for suffering here on earth. Yes.
All right. I have no idea what we were talking about because I just went on this rant about this very boring book. Oh, date night.
There it is. You brought it back. Yeah. So
I've been to 3 daily masses by choice, and one of them I had a very good experience, and the other two, including today, my mind was literally anywhere but that church. I just couldn't focus. And like today I had a couple of moments of focus where like I kind of locked in on the readings. I'm like, that was pretty good. But just like the whole Eucharistic prayer to me was essentially the drive home. I don't know what happened. I'm here. I'm not dead. I don't think anybody else is dead. I don't know what happened. But I went to mass, and then I went to lunch, and now I'm here. And just kind of happened, and I'm not sure what went on.
So, Taylor, it's good that you went to mass today. Good job.
Thanks, buddy. I feel like a good person. I feel like I should feel like I'm a good person. I do not feel like a good person.
Right. And it's crazy because our feelings aren't always the best indicator for success. And the fact that you force yourself to do something that you believed would bring you closer to God, like God sees that. He's honored. He's glorified by that reality. And so if you don't, quote unquote, get anything out of mass, you still get something out of mass. So good job.
It made my wife happy. I think that's what I got out of mass.
That's enough. You know what I mean? Like we've seen those kids that have come to youth ministry stuff or whatever because there's a pretty girl in the room or whatever. And next thing you know, they're 10 years later seminarians or whatever. So God can work with that. And making your wife happy is a worthy endeavor to embark upon.
Yeah, I think so too. So We chatted a little bit yesterday whenever I called you and asked you to do this. And you mentioned that you had heard some marriage advice recently. What's going on there?
Yeah, it's fascinating. So it was when you're in conflict with someone, you're not really fighting or arguing or in conflict with the whole person. And it seemed odd, right? I'm like, what do you mean? It's like, well, I'm mad at you, right? Let's say my wife and I get in a fight. I'm mad at you, or you're mad at me, or whatever. Like, all of me isn't mad at her. There's a part of me that is mad at her.
All of me is mad at all of you, all your curves and all your edges.
Very nice. Yeah. That was for those that are listening on the podcast, there were definitely some hand motions that left me wondering.
Waves of mercy, waves of grace.
Oh, I miss 2008 so bad because of that song.
I don't.
Yeah.
I don't at all. I literally learned how to play guitar, so I never had to do hand motions in church again.
Hand motions are a gateway drug to worship hands. And so that's why I'm okay with it. For those who are just learning, whatever, this is an aside that doesn't matter.
I think it's a gateway drug to Episcopalianism.
Well, you can make arguments there as well. And I think there is valid if sometimes what happens outside of church doesn't draw people back into church. It could draw them into other churches, but that's not the issue right now. Everyone's losing. We just hope that there's an Ireland out there somewhere that's saving all the
let me
faithful
tell
in one
you,
way or the
it's
other.
not Ireland this time.
They were doing real good until the potatoes stopped, and after that, they were just kind of building back. So
I actually think it was when this book was written. That's when the decline of Ireland started.
They're like, we don't want books anymore. We're done with books. If this is that was the nail in the coffin. That's hilarious.
We have an 800-year, very rich Catholic history. It ended when this book was written to simply torture Taylor.
Put us all to sleep. Okay, now I'm lost. What were we talking about? Oh, yes. So there's this idea.
Being mad at your wife. That's what we were talking
Yeah.
about.
So the concept is if I'm mad at my wife, it's not actually all of me that's frustrated or angry with my wife. It's just part of me, because there's part of me that still loves her. And again, I felt like hearing that, it kind of was eye-opening. It feels very much like Inside Out, where I've got like the angry version of Chris, and he's in the driver's seat, but there's still like the loving version of Chris that's somewhere in there or whatever.
He's chained up in the liver somewhere.
Yeah, but it all felt like partialism, like, am I like, we give this full gift of self, and you can withhold parts of yourself from someone. So I guess that makes sense that you're only showcasing certain sides, but it also felt like like there is part of me that loves my wife enough to have conflict with her. And not saying that conflict is my love language, because that would be weird. But at the same time, if my love with my wife doesn't have language that could be conflict or healthy conflict, is that a full expression of love? And so I don't know. I'm just kind of wrestling with as I'm thinking through it. But again, there's other times where it's like she'll say something and I'll be like, oh, when I was like 13 years old, I got picked on, and that reminded me of 13-year-old Chris. And then 13-year-old Chris feels hurt or defensive or angry. And so I get that there's like this family of origin stuff, or these wounds or these pieces that we have to explore. But I don't know. It felt like that there's like a puzzle piece, and like this puzzle piece is going into battle, and then, okay, but the other puzzle pieces are fine. I don't know. I'm still wrestling with that approach to understanding conflict.
Did you ever watch Whose Line Is It Anyway?
I love Whose Line Is It Anyway?
I think it's the greatest show ever put on television.
Even pre-Drew Carey, it's always been good.
It's so good. So there's a pretty popular game on there where they say, where the premise is something to the effect of like things you can say to your dog that you can't say to your wife, things that you can say to your children that you can't say to your wife, things that you can, whatever, right? So
Right.
I have one that I think fits pretty well here. It's like things that I can say to my kids that I can't say to my wife. I actually saw this pretty funny joke this summer whenever Inside Out 2 came out, right? Where it is this like the different emotions, and it's kind of like you're saying, like the partialism, like there's different people involved. There's different characters involved. It's like in Inside Out, whenever anger is involved, it's not like love and joy and sadness aren't also there. It's just anger is so much in control, right? Joy isn't murdered every time anger takes the controls. Joy's
Right.
still there, right? The core memories are
But maybe
still there.
joy is shouted down. Is that kind of...
Yeah, and I think things that I can say to my children that I can't say to my wife is like when my kids are angry, it's become this funny little thing where I saw this somewhere on the internet, but I've started implementing it in my life. I'm like, okay, it seems like anger's at the controls. Can I talk to Joy, please? I can do that with my kids. I don't think I can do that with my wife.
I think you should. And just report back. I think that would be that'd be good for me.
Yeah, next episode, Taylor with a black eye.
Nice.
Oh man, but I think there's as you mentioned it yesterday, and I was thinking about it. It's like, well, there are like especially in a marriage or just a friendship that you've built up a ton of time with, like any relationship where there's something built up. It's like, look, we have had 99%, 95%, 90% good times, and this 10, 5, 1%, depending on the relationship, where it's like, we live together, we're mad at each other, whether it's my kids or my wife or co-hosts that they have reasons they left, right? So it's like if there is ever conflict, it's like, well, the good thing is like I have built up enough of a relationship that like we can still be friends, right? Like, and I still love and care about you, and I still want what's best for you. Maybe just not right now, right? Like, it's like ultimately, it's like I love you, I want what's best for you. Right now, I'm pretty angry, but it's like it's still like you're saying. It's like the iceberg sticking out of the water is the thing that seems like we're going to wreck. If a fight in my marriage or a fight with a friend is like, it's like the top of the iceberg is what I can see. But in this case, it's like what's under the ocean is actually like the tip of the iceberg is our fight. But like my love for my wife has actually been built up, and it's this thing that's very large and actually can't be broken. But like the tip of the iceberg can be broken off, right? Where it's like, I can be angry, I can be mad, but it's like, there's a depth that you can't really see in the moment, but it's there of like, no, I really do love and care about you. And we have millions of positive memories together that ultimately outweigh this momentary affliction.
So in the same sense, and just to kind of flip it upside down, not the iceberg, but this idea, if we can have anger or joy or whatever, a lead, right? There's this underlying idea that we should suppress part of ourself, right? Like whether it be anger or whether it be like an impatient part of ourself, we don't want that to be the driver. But the idea of suppressing, it makes me wonder if I do that spiritually. Like we go to mass on Sunday and we put on our Sunday best, but also I think we sometimes put on a facade. Like,
oh, I definitely didn't do that today. I probably looked as grumpy as I felt in daily mass today.
You were grumpy, yeah. But there's all 7 dwarfs inside of you.
That's actually how I'm this tall. I'm actually just a bunch of dwarves in a coat.
Yeah, I look forward to meeting Sneezy someday soon. But what if you go and there's that aspect of you, let's call it Sneezy, and you never let Sneezy get revealed to God during Mass or during your prayer time. You're always hiding that one part of you. That's where the kind of aspect of partialism, because there is, I mean, in the conversations you have, it's like, I don't want anger to lead, but I don't want to hide that from God either. Like, and of course, God can handle us being angry. Like he can handle quite a bit. But then is there a part of me that I'm not giving my full authentic self to the Lord in prayer because I'm hiding a piece that's a less desirable piece when it comes to my relationship with my wife or my kids? Is it less desirable to the Lord? Or he's like, yeah, angry Chris is sometimes the Chris that I want to minister to. And it's like, no, I'm not supposed to let angry Chris out of his cage, you know? And again, this gets into, do I have like a split personality? And it's like, no, but what does it mean to offer our full authentic selves when if some elements of that are broken or angry or less desirable or, and you don't want to bring that to God. There's shame connected to it and different things like that. So it's hard. So again, this all got me thinking about partialism, and am I really authentically Chris in every conversation, even in the conversations where I'm angry or ugly or frustrated? And then do I ever show God that side?
Yeah, it's interesting. I have 2 thoughts. One, when it comes to like us coming to God, and then one just with other people. I think when it comes to God, if we're hiding ourselves from God, it's something akin to like, my whole body is healthy, except my big toe is broken. But, 99% of my body's healthy. It's just my big toe. And yet, because I have a broken big toe, it's affecting the rest of my body. I feel pain every time I walk. It's not letting me sleep well. So the rest of my body is not doing well. Like it would be like going to the doctor and being like, hey, how is everything? It's like, well, ultimately everything's fine. 99% of me is healthy. It's like, well, is there anything wrong? It's like, yeah, but let's ignore that. It's like, no, if you go to the doctor and you have a broken toe, you tell them about the 1% that's wrong. Or you know,
Right.
if you have a broken femur, much bigger deal. That's more than 1%. There's a huge big thing. So it's like, if we're going to God and hiding something, it would be like going to the doctor and hiding something, where it's
Right.
like we're literally going to the physician who can heal us, and we're like, actually, I'm not going to tell you. And he's actually already done X-rays, and he's like, are you going to tell me that your toe is broken? Because I'm aware, but I can't treat you if you don't want me to treat you. You know, so.
Exactly. Yeah. And that's the beauty of God, you know, is that he's not going to force healing or force, you know,
I wish you would.
intimacy on us.
I wish you would. I would like to right now give a blanket just yes to God's healing. At any point, just heal me whenever you'd like to. I'm getting older. I'm fat. If you want to make Ozempic just course through my body right now and have me lose 30 pounds, I'd love it. If you would like to make my my elbow stop hurting and my hamstrings fully heal from all the scar tissue from tearing those, I open invitation anytime you want. I know we always say the Lord's a gentleman and won't do anything without asking. I'm asking right now, and I'm never going to take it back. Just bring the healing, right? But when it comes to other people, like, you know, in relationships with wife, kids, friends, you know, coworkers, whatever, where I've struggled with the like partialism is I think there are times where it takes discernment to know when to reveal what and who to reveal things to, right? Like, my wife knows me way better than anybody. My wife knows me more than anybody else does, right? And then there's people like Father Anthony and you that know some of the worst parts of me that a lot of other people do not know, because I trust, you know, a couple of people in my life, to be honest.
But could you imagine, like, what if you just didn't? Because that makes sense. You're at the checkout and they're like, hey, how's your day going? It's like, well, honestly, I'm still grieving the loss of my grandmother. And they're like, okay, well, would you like this in a bag? Like, It's just so weird. So it makes sense. Yeah.
She was actually buried in wood. That's not what I was asking. I was like,
Brutal.
But like, there is sometimes where it takes discernment to like, what do I share with who and when? So like, even with my wife, you with your wife, it's like, whenever there's something not going well in your life, whenever they're mad at you, might not be the best time to openly reveal that thing. At least wait till things calm down enough to be like, look, maybe I'm not at my best because, you know, so-and-so just passed away, or this other thing that like you didn't know was going on is actually I'm wrestling with, and it's affecting everything else. So like, there are times and places for that. But I think because there is discernment of who, when, what, where, we can mess it up. We can't mess it up. Like, there are, if there are ways to do it well, like me only confiding in my wife, my best friend, you, Father Anthony, like there's some positive discernment there. But at the same time, I can withhold things from people, and it's not healthy. So I think you're feeling bad about the partialism, but I think we're all, I'll give another example. Like, when I am like, I gave the apologetics talk last night. Like, when I'm giving the apologetics talk, I am ramping up certain parts of myself that maybe aren't skills that I flex otherwise. Like, I'm actually toning down my humor a bit because I'm in this teaching context. It is more serious, and I'm being more of a teacher. That doesn't mean I'm never funny at all, but you know, if I'm making a joke a minute here, I'm making a joke every 20 minutes when I'm giving a talk, right? Does that mean I'm being inauthentic? No, it means that I'm meeting where the needs of whatever is going on. I think one place where I've done it well and not well is when I play in my softball league that has nothing to do with faith. There's a couple of people of faith. There's a couple of people that aren't. And I think the times where I've had this part, like where which Taylor am I? It's like, I'm just softball Taylor right now. I'm like Barbie. I'm changing I'm softball Barbie. I'm church Barbie. I'm, you know, all these things, right? Where it's like, I could go to softball and be an evangelist, and that would be weird and off-putting to most people, right? But at the same time, I probably have overdone it a bunch. I probably cuss more at softball than I should, because people there do know that I'm a church person, and maybe I'm not giving the best example. At the same time, what I have done well is, just by being a normal person and not being an evangelist, there are people who have like not been super into their faith who are like, oh yeah, I used to be Catholic, I haven't done anything in a while. I'm like, come to my foundations course. And they come to the foundations course, and now they're on fire for their faith. Great. Like, so like, even in that like example of like Taylor not being fully who he is, I don't think that I should be Catholic podcaster or a Catholic speaker when I'm playing softball with atheists. I don't think that's who I should be.
You should still be Catholic Taylor, but that doesn't mean you have to be like, oh, by the way, in mass yesterday, I encountered this.
Right.
They're just like, oh, great hit. That's how you evangelize.
Exactly.
Yeah.
If I hit a home run, you have to come to church with me on Sunday, that sort of thing. But so even there, it's like, I am partial, and I think it is very well discerned to be a different version of myself than I am on here or whatever. And that can feel weird. It's like, oh, you're not being your true self. It's like, no, I'm looking at the place, the situation, the people, and trying to make a decision. And there have been times that I've done it well and done it poorly, but that doesn't mean being a different version of myself in different places is bad altogether.
Right. Yeah. It's almost like you're saying, I'm being, to quote our good Australian friend, the best version of yourself for softball, and the best version of yourself for fatherhood, and the best version of yourself for podcasting. Yeah.
Yeah. Good. Any other thoughts on that?
No, but I do have a thought on one other thing that's a throwback to Father Anthony. So if you're ready to shift,
I'm not yet. That was a good softball transition, but I'm not ready to fully shift from this topic.
Okay, good. Keep going.
So the connection that I was making, because after we talked yesterday, I was thinking through positives. Like I was thinking through the iceberg that's under the water, like all the positive things that, like, the memories my wife and I have. Like, we've been married for, let's see, 2012, we've been married for 12 years. We've been together for 15. Like, we have a ton of great memories. But I was recalling one of the first times that we were fighting. And this was like it was, we were kind of in our honeymoon phase for a while. And then we had a son. And then whenever he was born, like, sleep goes out the window. We're stressed out. We're far from family. Like, just stress levels were rising. It wasn't anything super bad, but it's like right around that time, this song called Remind Me came out by Brad Paisley and Carrie Underwood. Have you heard this song?
No. I mean, probably, but
it's one of the, it's funny. It's a song about remembering, and I completely forgot about it until you and I spoke yesterday. So the song is literally about this exact topic of like remembering the good times, either when like married people are fighting, or just like, even if you're not fighting, but just like, we're just doing regular life. We're taking kids to school and to practice, and we're both working.
It gets busy.
Like, there's just stuff where it's just like, I am not as madly feeling so like, as like whatever the feelings and the lovey-doveys aren't there like they were, the day after the wedding or whatever. Right.
Right.
And this song is essentially like, it's a duet, which duets just get to my heart, man. Like, so it's Carrie Underwood and Brad Paisley singing back and forth. And essentially it's like, do you remember when things were better? Do you remember when we first fell in love? And the other person is singing in the background, remind me. So it's like, they're going back and forth. So for example, I'm going to talk about kissing for a little bit. So just be forewarned, fast forward a couple times if you don't want to. Actual kissing, no apostrophes needed, or whatever you just did. All right, we didn't care if people stared. We made out in a crowd somewhere. Somebody tell us to get a room. It's hard to believe that was me and you, because this is like an older married couple talking. Right now, we keep saying that we're okay, but I don't want to settle for good, not great. I miss the way that I felt back then. I want to feel that way again. It's been so long that you'd forget the way I used to kiss your neck. And then the other person singing, remind me. So on fire, so in love, way back when we couldn't get enough. Remind me. I remember the airport, you dropping me off. We were kissing goodbye and we couldn't stop. And I felt bad because you missed your flight, but that meant we had one more night. So like, even when you're in this young love, it's like, we were late to the airport. It's probably your fault. And I missed my flight. But like, when you're that much in love, you're like, it became a good thing pretty quickly of like,
right.
We have one more night together before you have to leave. And yet when you're married for 12 years and you're late and you miss a flight, you're like, so you're like, remind me of like the times where like we were so in love that it didn't matter. Right. And then there is something about the apostrophe, so we're not going to get into that. So on fire, so in love, that look in your eyes that I miss so much. Remind me. And like, you have to listen to it, I think, to get the full effect of it, because as they're singing those words, remind me, like, you can feel like the depth of like, this is a guttural, like from the depths of love of like, remind me how you used to make me feel. Remind me.
Right.
And the other person, just this deep longing from both parties, both people in this marriage, the fictional marriage. Obviously, these two aren't married in real life, but this fictional marriage of like, remind me how we used to feel, make each other feel, and like in one person reminding the other, it's going to help the other person remind. And it's just that song has always meant a lot to me, and I haven't thought about it in many years, but like it got us through. And like every time we fought or got into it or felt like we were drifting apart or whatever it was in the first 5, 6, 7, 8 years of the marriage, I would listen to it. And a lot of times I'd play it when we were in the car together and we'd smile and move forward. And like, so the conversation that you and I were having just reminded me of that song. And I was like, oh, and there's that scripture in Revelation of like Jesus saying, God saying to us or us saying to God, like, remind me of your first love. Like, remind me of when I first fell in love with God. Like today, sitting in mass when I wasn't feeling a thing, and I'm like, I'm just here so I don't get fined, like Marshawn Lynch or whatever. Like I'm just here to do the bare minimum. And God's like, hey, remember when you first fell in love with me? Remember when you and a few years later when you gave that talk and it changed people's lives and it made you feel great? Remember that time when things were going really bad and I showed up for you? Like, remember.
Yeah. Thank you, Taylor.
You're so welcome. I'm going to keep going because you look like you're still ready to change subjects. I'm going to go back to prayer. Are you ready to talk about prayer?
Good. Talk about prayer. Let's do it.
One of our mutual friends, Alyssa Trutter, texted me about a week ago, and she's the
Alyssa, yes.
Yeah, she's the holiest person that I've ever met. I actually told the story a couple of weeks ago that the only way I'll ever be a saint is if I murdered near Alyssa Trutter, because I will be, it'll be Saint Alyssa Trutter and companions, and I'll just be the companions. That's my only way of being mentioned in the church's calendar. But she sent me this story, this thing, and it was again kind of a meaningful thing because we hadn't talked in a while. She had moved away, I haven't seen her in a while. And ironically enough, I was actually missing her the other day because we had a trunk or treat at our parish. And that last year at this trunk or treat, she was there, and I went over and talked to her the whole time. So she didn't know that I was missing her. And then like 2 days later, she texted me this podcast from Poco a Poco, the old priesties, and it was about prayer, because like one of my biggest things, especially working at a Blaze where you're now el presidente, was always like, look, people always talk about their personal prayer life and nobody talks about what they do. So here I am wondering if I'm doing it right or wondering if I'm doing the right thing, because I've only ever done personal prayer with me, because that's what personal means, right? So
yes,
I will always just ask and ask and ask, what do you do? And I asked Alyssa every day for 6 years. And she finally was like, look, here's a podcast. Listen to this. And they were talking about prayer as remembering truth. Prayer as remembering truth. And the whole point of the scriptures is to know who God is and to know who we are and our relationship with him, and therefore our relationship with each other. And so in prayer, we encounter the one who is truth. The scriptures help us to know the truth, and we recall these truths in prayer. So like whenever things are going bad, very often scripture passages pop into my head, reminding me that, oh yeah, this bad thing is happening, or you're doing the wrong thing. And the scripture in my head, that little voice inside my head, is reminding me, actually, you shouldn't be doing this thing. What do you think about scripture as remembering truth?
Well, prayer and scripture as remembering truth, I think that truth echoes in our very being, right? And so I think that there is something about being created by God, right? And then our parents are co-creators in that process, to where even if I'm someone, I'm like, I don't even know if I know truth. It's like, yeah, you do, because you got God's fingerprints all over you. Your very existence points back to a greater truth, just the fact that you exist. And I think that's a great pathway, because I think this can sound weird, but there's unexplored truth that we can remember, because when I was created by God, I wasn't conscious of that reality. And I can't like remembering going trick-or-treating, a week ago, I can recall, but I have to like reflect and remember to have access to those deeper truths that exist by the fact that I'm a child of God. And so I think it's not just like, oh yeah, but it's like, whoa, there's like gold that needs to be mined out of here, because there's depth that I never knew when I first said yes to Jesus when I was in 7th grade. There's depth that I never knew when my parents had me baptized when I was 3 months old. There's these depths in these memories of truth that I think the Lord actually invites us to explore with him. So yes,
This is how the Lord speaks to me. You just unlocked the core memory that I forgot that I had. You said memories of Halloween and trick-or-treating. I like literally hadn't thought about this in years. Every time I think about Halloween now, I think about a couple years ago when I was Kratos. That was awesome. And then a couple of years later when I was Bane. Very fun. You just unlocked a childhood memory, probably young teenage Taylor. It was like, it's one of those years where it's like, you're probably a little too old to go trick-or-treating, but we were going to do it anyway because we were still trying to have one last little moment of childhood and joy before we entered getting older. And I wanted, it was one of those things I didn't plan a costume because I was like 13 or whatever, 12, I don't know. And but I had rollerblades and I had a white t-shirt and I had some red hair dye. So me and my friend, we went as rollerbladers who had just got hit by a car. So we ripped the shirt open, I think primarily just to show off our rock hard six pack, which actually was a thing back then. We ripped our shirts. We like went over to the tires and kind of like rubbed up against the tires, got some tire marks on our shirt.
Very nice.
Completely shredded. And we went around on rollerblades and I dyed my hair completely red with spiking straight up. That's what you did. And you just reminded me that I used to be someone that enjoyed myself and also probably made everyone else around them cringe. So good times.
But again, the truth that I'm digging up there is the genius of innovation. So you are an innovator in regards to Catholic podcasting and different things of that nature. There's an entrepreneurial spirit in you and running your own nonprofit. And all the way back then, you're 13 years old and you're like, this is probably my last chance to do this. And I'm going to strap wheels on my feet so that I can hit 30% more or 60% more houses. So the truth of innovation is in that story, in that memory.
And then if I got actually hit by a car, it'd be much easier for the hospital people to know what happened because I heard
it'd be so confusing. They're like, oh, no, this is red dye. His head is fine. This is just red dye. Well, why is he hurting? Oh, my side. Oh, yeah, by the tire marks. No, my other side. Like the other side of me. Yeah.
Very funny. All right, last little piece on this, the scripture from John 14:26. But the Helper, the Holy Spirit, who the Father will send in my name, he will teach you all things and bring to your remembrance all that I have said to you. So, like, again, it's that reminder of truth. And just the last little piece was that you have unlimited access to the unlimited God. So that inspired me to pray a little bit more. Not today in Mass, but last week in Mass, right after listening to the podcast. It was very good, and I enjoyed it. All right, we're going to take a little break, and then we're going to come back and find out what Chris has been wanting to talk about for the last 20 minutes. Don't go anywhere. We are quickly moving into the season of Thanksgiving and giving. If you would like to send a year-end donation to Forte Catholic to support the work that we are doing here, we could definitely use your help. ForteCatholic.com/donate is the way that you can show your support for this show and all the other things that we do here. We just truly appreciate our donors. We're so thankful for you guys for supporting us in the work that we do in the ministry that we do here on the podcast, on our YouTube channel, helping other creators create their podcast YouTube channels, all that sort of stuff. If you want to support that, ForteCatholic.com/donate. It's, end of year, getting to tax season. We are a 501c3 nonprofit, so all of your donations are tax deductible, and I'll send you a donation receipt in early January to help you out on your taxes. Thank you so much in advance, and enjoy the rest of today's show. Welcome back to Forte Catholic. I'm Taylor Schroll, and Chris has something on his mind.
I'm dying to know. So, did you put the statue in your yard? So a couple weeks ago, Father Anthony was on the podcast, and he was made a little bit squirmy, a little bit cringy in regards to your arguably more superstition than Catholic practice that you were encouraged to partake in of burying a St. Joseph statue upside down in your front yard in order to sell the house.
So it has been... Let's see here. Let me see. Let me be honest with everybody here. We are recording this on a Thursday. That episode was recorded last Monday. So it has been a week and 3 days since I recorded that episode, and about a week and 1 day since that episode released. Every single day since I've recorded that episode, my plan after that episode is to go and bury St. Joseph upside down in my front yard. If that doesn't make any sense to you, go back and listen to the last episode with Father Anthony, and maybe it'll make 10% more difference.
That's about right. Yep.
I was going to do it that day. And even though I talked a big game on the show, I still feel very squeamish about burying St. Joseph. I can't stomach it. Where it... This has been weird. People have asked me every day since that show was released. Somebody has commented on Instagram or on YouTube or sent me a text message or sent me a DM or something. Every day somebody has asked me, has the house sold yet because you buried St. Joseph? And the answer is no, the house hasn't sold yet. I think probably because I haven't buried St. Joseph upside down in my yard. But here's the thing. I haven't gone back on my newfound thing that I think I'm going to do it, because every single day it is my plan to go and bury St. Joseph by my for sale sign. And every single day I'm like, no, I'm too busy. I'm not too busy. Or maybe I shouldn't do this. I think I should do this. Or, oh, my kids come first. Or no, they don't. I just keep coming up with excuses not to do it. I think because a big part of me still feels very squeamish about it. And yet it's still on my to-do list for today. We'll see how it goes.
Well, I think you should bundle. Like, you should get a value meal here. And so, like, get the St. Joseph statue.
I'm terrified about what you're about to say.
And then get I don't know, a third day CD, and then see if it sells in 3 days, right?
Oh.
Or better yet, you're familiar with who Jack Bauer is?
Yeah. I'm very familiar with who his daughter is on that show. Yeah.
Okay, well, he is in the show 24. And so if you can go on eBay and get a Jack Bauer action figure. Yes. Get a Jack Bauer action figure and bury him upside down with St. Joseph, then your house will sell within 24 hours, guaranteed.
But here's the thing with that show. It was a show called 24, and every season lasted 9 months, and that's about as long as it's been since my house has been on the market. So I don't like that idea.
Okay, well, I'm just suggesting.
All right, you're trying to add more superstition to my already Catholic superstition.
Exactly. I'm not having. I am actually poking fun at it. The whole thing. Absolutely. Yes.
Okay. Let's play a game. You brought a game for us to play. I would like to let you have the floor to tell us what we're going to be doing here.
Mr. Taylor, we
you brought me your trash.
Here's the bag of trash. We both experienced a lot of fun in parenting, because it wasn't since rollerblading that you last had this much fun on Halloween. And so we dressed up our kids on Halloween, took them around. My son, who was going to be a giant ear of corn, which, by the way, Chris is allergic to corn.
I am too.
And are you really?
Yeah, it's a new thing I found out. Keep going. Don't worry about it.
Okay. Well, anyways, yeah, I feel seen.
Yeah.
But nevertheless, he changed his mind because it was an inflatable one, and you kind of have to waddle with those inflatable.
Oh, that would have been bad. It could have been inflatable. You could have popped it. There's a joke there. That would have been awesome.
Right, nice popcorn. Got it. And he changed it up at the last minute and said, "I'm going to be a pirate instead." And the reason why
I'm allergic to those too. Can't eat them.
Oh my gosh, they get stuck in my teeth.
Yeah.
He wanted to be a pirate so that he could move faster. So we went to the fancy area of our neighborhood. There's like regular areas, but there's a fancy area where like 1 in 4 houses gives full-size candy bars. I know, bougie. And they have their own HOA, this pool that no one else can have access to. All these.
I love that things. Bougie these days is 99 cents. Wow, they're so wealthy. They gave away a little less than $1.
They must own a Tesla, or they can afford groceries. One of the two. So we lose him. We lose him and another neighborhood kid, and we find out it's because they just went and they made like 2 laps. It was more like 1.5 because we actually sent out a search party to find them, and so they made about 2 laps, and so. My son, the pirate, got the biggest bag of Halloween candy. Everyone else had the exact same variety. Booty. Oh yes, my booty. And so anyway, so then my daughter and I, we get back and we're pulling out Halloween candy, and I'm like, where was Jesus tonight? And she pulls out a piece of candy and she makes a little pun or a play on words off of how Jesus connects to this piece of Halloween candy. And immediately a freestyle preaching came in, and I was like, let's just do it. Grab a piece of Halloween candy and use it to share the gospel in like a sentence or something like that. And so we had some fun with it. I thought I'd bring the game to you and we could do it. So I have here an unseen bag of Halloween candy.
I can see it very clearly.
Sorry, an uninspected.
It's unseen to most of our listeners because they're still on the podcast feed.
I haven't looked inside. It's not like it's a preset. So it's going to be at random. I'll grab a piece of candy at random and then I'll make it somehow connect to Jesus. And then you do the same thing with the next piece I grab, and we'll do it for a little bit, and we'll see if we have hits or we have misses, if it's sweet or salty, whatever. Let's just have a little fun with instant evangelization.
All right, here we go. I'm excited about this.
Would you like to go first, or would you like me to?
I would like for you to go first. You can be the leadoff hitter, and I'll knock you in.
All right. Here we go. I got a box of Milk Duds here, and I just want to encourage you guys not to be a dud and just milk the grace that God gives you every single day, because he invites us to the land of milk and honey.
Most homilies that are by priests that look like milk are duds.
Wow. Okay. Here's yours, Taylor.
All right.
M&M's.
M&M's. That reminds me of my past when I used to listen to Eminem, and when I went to a Steubenville youth conference, I came home and I was like, whatever is true, good, and beautiful and pure, only dwell on these things. So I went home and I threw away my Eminem CDs, and that was the first time my mom realized that I listened to Eminem CDs, and I got in trouble. Because she found the Eminem CDs in the trash, and I'm like, I don't understand. I don't think you understand what just happened. I threw them away, and she's like, you shouldn't have had them in the first place. I'm like, I used your money. I don't know what you want me to do. So I got in trouble for trying to be a good and holy person, and I think that's probably why I struggle being a good and holy person, because I relate it to punishment.
The first time you really made a bold move for your faith,
right.
You got yelled at for it.
Yeah, so I threw them away, and very quickly after that, whatever the Napster came out, and I just downloaded it.
I did a very similar thing with some punk rock CDs that I had, and sure enough, we literally drove over them with a tractor, and then streaming services came out, and I'm like singing along to all the songs a year and a half later. Right. Yeah. But
and you probably listened to them yesterday.
For that 18 months, beautiful. Now I listened to you yesterday. All right, here's the next one.
Worse.
Smarties.
Your turn.
We heard about the dum-dums. If you want to be smart, if you want to be a smarty pants, you say yes to Jesus Christ every day.
They used to give us Smarties before tests and talk about superstition. I didn't study. Will this candy do it for me?
That's right. Here we go. Kit Kat.
Give me a break. Give me a break with all this talk of your holiness and how you're holier than thou. I know that you're just as much of a sinner as me. Give me a break. Stop being perfect.
I have Whoppers.
If you say what I think you're going to say, I'm going to be pissed.
Okay. I'm not going to say what you... I have no idea. I feel like I'm stumped. I'm going to pass it to you, Taylor. Whoppers.
Have you ever heard of the sin of gluttony? Well, here I am, a big old Whopper. Don't be like me. Eat well, take care of yourself. You're a temple of the Lord, not a Whopper.
Very nice. Oh, we got M&M's again. That's a repeat. Oh, good. Peanut M&M's. And I'll take this one since you rescued me. So I just want to let you know that Jesus is like a peanut M&M. He's very sweet on the outside, but on the inside, he's got that protein, that peanut to nourish you. So this is like a food and a snack. It's a candy and it's a snack.
You just compared Jesus to a peanut, which I think I'm also allergic to. So what M&Ms are for me is it's kind of like the life with Jesus. When you first meet him, it's kind of sweet, and then as you keep chewing, it gets a little tougher to stick around.
And I will say this because I think this is something that we don't talk about enough as Catholics. And sometimes he gets stuck in your teeth. Have you ever had that moment? Have you ever had that moment
yes!
when you've received
what the
Holy
blood
Communion?
Is for, Chris.
You're arguing that the precious blood was actually a logistical thing. Like, yeah, I'm gonna get stuck in your teeth, so I need to offer myself to allow you to wash me down.
The Lord cares about us so much that he thought of everything.
You know that famous scene from the Mission Impossible where he's getting lowered into the room.
I do. I've actually watched 3 of those movies now. That was my task for last year, was to get caught up, and I gave up. I was going to say halfway, but it's not halfway anymore because he makes one every 3 months now.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. But he's there with his arms raised. If you've ever received communion and then like swallowed without chewing and put your tongue against the roof of your mouth.
I've never done that. Why would I do that?
I've had situations where on the roof of my mouth, the Lord, that you may enter under my roof, he's like, and I must stay there. The host gets stuck to the roof of my mouth. And I'm sitting there for the rest of the liturgy, tonguing the roof of my mouth to bring Jesus on home. So
I got a weird look today because like 8 people in front of me received on the tongue, and then I received in the hand, and the priest looked at me all grumpy. I would have received on the tongue if I was lowered from the ceiling, like Mission Impossible. I would absolutely. That would be my one time I would receive on the tongue, is if I was like Tom Cruise in that scene. I'd be like, yeah, let's do this.
I wonder if there's a priest out there that is like, you know what? I'm going to make this work out just so that Taylor can start receiving on the tongue.
I'm going to come in from Father Anthony's 130-foot ceilings at his fancy castle church next summer. Coming next summer. Mission Impossible Forte.
Will be the Mission Impossible theme song, like while everyone's processing up. There's
organ.
No words. On organ. All right, here's your next one.
Okay. Yeah, we got to go back to the candy. We've already pissed off everybody.
Baby Ruth.
Is that my turn or your turn?
It's definitely your turn. Yeah.
Oh man, we just watched The Sandlot the other day, and Baby Ruth was a big part of the movie because Babe Ruth was on the baseball, and just the whole idea that we can confuse ourselves by the big scary thing, right? A lot of times the big scary thing is going into the confessional, and that dog that they thought was a monster, by the end of the movie, it's just a regular dog, and the scary person that they thought lived there was just a normal, loving black guy. Like James Earl Jones, gotta love him. We just watched it the week after he died. Rest in peace, James Earl Jones. Yeah. He read the Bible to me. It was very lovely. I love when Darth Vader reads me the Bible. It brings me a very strange sensation. But that whole story is a reminder that things aren't always what they seem. And these things that seem to be scary are actually very good and enjoyable for us. They thought it was scary to go into the yard. They thought it was going to be scary to meet the man. And actually the man was like the most loving and joyful person they could possibly meet. And they went and hung out with him every week. Kind of like going to mass every week. Boom, Amen. Baby Ruth, baby.
All right. I've got a dum-dum. I'm not going to go back to the don't be a dum-dum. I'm actually going to talk about sacramental grace through the gift of confirmation. So we receive these gifts at confirmation, and a lot of times we just sit there. They just sit there. But unless we unwrap the gifts that we receive at confirmation and actually start using them, we won't taste the sweetness of God's grace or God's working in our life until we unwrap the gifts. And so I like the fact that there is a wrapper holding up the beauty and the gift of this dum-dum.
I didn't hear a word you said because all I heard the whole time was dum-dum from Law and Order, and I thought you were going to go down that direction. The dum, Lord dum, dum. has given us his law and ordered us to follow them. Dum-dum!
Okay, this is a very tiny one. It's just a watermelon candy. This is probably a razor blade. That's what this probably is.
What does it say? Okay, I need more. Read me what's on that thing there.
Okay, I've got to put on my glasses. There we go.
Hey, look, a costume. Where'd Chris go?
It literally says just watermelon chewy candy. Watermelon flavored chewy candy.
Well, the first thing that pops into my head is watermelon sugar. Hi, which we in our family use as a way to greet one another. We don't use it as HIGH. We use it as hello, and I think it's just a reminder for us to be loving to our neighbors. And whenever we see neighbors, even the ones we don't like because they park in front of our houses, watermelon sugar. Hi. That was the weakest one, but also the weakest candy. So,
all right, one more each. You ready?
Yeah.
This is at Twizzlers, and the neat thing is if you look at a Twizzler, it's actually a number of tiny pieces of licorice woven together. And I think that's what the communion of faith is. Like, even though we're not church triumphant, we're not in heaven, we're still woven together with them in the liturgy. And we can pray for the church suffering, woven together with them in the liturgy for those souls in purgatory. And here on earth, the church militant.
Beautiful, beautiful. I think that's your best one.
Yeah, probably. Okay, and now we've got ourselves a Jolly Rancher. Bring it home.
A jolly rancher. Man, this just reminds me of the simple life. Whenever I think of ranchers, I just think of jolly, simple people. And a lot of times we love our apologetic series and learning more about the Lord, but some of the most faithful people are just simple people living their normal lives. They love the Lord, they do what's required, and they don't care about the words like transubstantiation or proving that God exists, because they just believe that bread is Jesus and that God exists, and they don't need the arguments. They're just perfectly fine with that. I think it's just a reminder for all of us to be just like those jolly old ranchers.
A simple faith is a profound faith. Yes, Taylor.
Amen.
Thank you.
Amen and amen. Well, Christopher Bartlett, this is your 30th time here, but your first time as an official co-host. I think it went okay.
I did it. I made okay.
You did okay. We got Pittsburgh's okayest priest and Blaze's okayest president.
So far.
So far. Yeah, there will be one much better in a few years whenever they kick you out.
Oh, shh. Don't tell him. Don't tell him.
All right. Yeah, no one will hear this. Don't worry about it. We're an hour in to an unpopular Catholic podcast, and we talked about receiving Jesus as a Mission Impossible man. Everyone's gone. There's no one listening to this, so it's okay. We can say whatever we want.
Even Father James Martin has walked away. Okay, good.
All right, now we're really done. I'm Taylor Schroll. I'll be back next week. He's Chris Bartlett. He'll be back in a month. See ya! Thank you for watching and listening to today's episode. I hope that you enjoyed it. If you did, make sure that you hit that subscribe button. If you're on a podcast app, leave us a 5-star rating. It just takes 10 seconds. 5 stars, say I like this show, and hit submit. It really, truly helps us in all the algorithms over on those podcast feeds. If you're on YouTube, make sure you hit subscribe, hit the little bell so you don't miss anything. Also, everybody, check out all the things that we have going on our YouTube channel. Not only are there full-length episodes of this show, but we are almost done with our apologetics series. It's all 6 of the 8 videos are up there already. We also have our Catholic Foundation series for those of you who are maybe new to Catholicism or just want to have a reinvigoration in your knowledge of the church and her teachings. All of that is at youtube.com/Forte Catholic. Until next week, love you.